Okay, we are ready to go. Okay, thank you for joining this last webinar on our how to report on labor and human rights from our session investigating the ocean. I'm Federico Acosta Rainis, data editor at the Pulitzer Center and part of the data and research team. It's a pleasure to be here, and I hope this will be an inspiring session for you, and you can learn more tricks if you are interested in reporting on this topic. So this is our agenda for today. We first listened to Katie McQue, which is an investigative reporter and an ORN fellow. During her fellowship at the Pulitzer Center, she did an amazing series of reporting about labor and human rights in the sea, and she will talk about that. And then about, and also give us advice on how to interview affected people and seafarers from an ethical and responsible way. Then we will have a few, as Katie has to go. We'll have 10 minutes, around 10 minutes, to ask questions about her reporting. So I suggest you to start adding your questions in the chat or use the Q&A function from Zoom. We have also here my colleague Ella from the Pulitzer Center that we will be helping us collecting this question, and we will be answering. So if you have questions through Katie's presentation, please feel to add them, and we'll have 10 minutes after she talks to go through them. And then after those questions, I'll share some databases, platforms, and tips from the Pulitzer Center that we use at the data and research team when we are doing this kind of investigation. So the session is being recorded, as I said, and will be published afterwards in our YouTube channel. So, and after the webinar, we will also be sharing links and slides so you can check them at your own pace. Before I pass it to Katie, just want to remind you that and recommend to also watch the other webinars after this one. The ones that we did, this is the last one, but we have one on how to follow the money, one on how to track ships like a pro, and one on how to report on regulation and governments, all related to the ocean. There's a lot of interesting material. We have different journalists talking about their experience, their work, and I think it's a very good material to add to your investigative toolkit. So without further ado, Katie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Fedi. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. So my talk, as Fedi mentioned, is on the hidden crisis of human trafficking of seafarers, which is a growing problem, it seems, driven by the shipping industry looking to cut costs, very unscrupulous players, and it's very easy to exploit people out in the middle of the ocean when they're far away from home. So I've written a series of stories on this, and I'll just talk you through a little bit of my work. Betty, could you change slides, please? Thank you. Just a little bit of background for me. So I've been a journalist for over a decade. I have had various kind of staff roles covering business beats, and then as a freelancer, I have been covering human rights and specifically human trafficking for about 7 or 8 years now. I'm based right now in Brooklyn in New York, where I have been for the last 4.5 years. And prior to that, I was based in the UAE, where there was a lot of material in this realm to report on, in terms of it's a huge hub for migrant workers, and there's a lot of exploitation to write about there. So that's where I began doing a lot of this work. Yeah, next slide. Thank you very much. So I just wanted to start with some definitions of labor trafficking and forced labor. So labor trafficking involves recruitment and transportation and transfer and harboring of people for the purpose of exploitation. And this can be achieved through extracting labor through force, threats, coercion, deception, or abusing an aspect of a person's vulnerability. And I'll talk more about that as we go through. And forced labor is the actual product of this and the work that's being extracted through coercion or lack of payment from these workers. Next slide, please, Fede. So when I'm reporting on these subjects, I am looking, when I'm reaching out to people that may be subjected to these crimes, I will be looking to kind of almost compile a picture of obviously what abuses they are facing. And I kind of have this checklist in my mind, which I'll ask them about throughout the interview, which are indicators of trafficking and forced labor. So I kind of can assess whether or not the person I'm speaking to is a victim or a survivor of these crimes. So these can include threats and intimidation of violence, and this can be usually at the hands of an employer or a recruitment agent that has recruited somebody for work and maybe made false promises. And maybe when the person has realized that they've been duped, they try to extract themselves from the situation, and threats or threats of violence may be the result of that. Wages being withheld or underpaid or unexpected deductions. So I'll find when I'm speaking with a lot of seafarers that a lot of them aren't being paid for the very difficult work that they're doing, or have in fact paid a recruitment agent for their positions under the belief that they'll be earning money, and so in fact they've actually paid money to work very difficult jobs, and and they're not earning any money. Excessive working hours with little or no rest is very common, and not being paid or the overtime hours that they may be being required to work. Debt and recruitment fees or other financial dependency can trap workers, and this is called debt bondage. And what that will look like again is if a worker has paid a recruitment fee for their job, they may have had to borrow money, or their families may have had to borrow money to pay that recruitment fee. These recruitment fees would be paid to agents in their home countries that would be recruiting for jobs, maybe overseas on ships. A lot of these recruitment fees are illegal, but they have become the norm in a lot of parts of the world, especially I've done a lot of reporting on seafarers that come from the Philippines or India, and it's very, very normal to see and hear about big recruitment fees being paid in those countries. Another really drastic and terrible thing that can happen to a seafarer is if their ID or their passport's been confiscated and they're away from home in a different country, they are incredibly vulnerable because they can't leave, and this happens a lot. So especially in the seafaring world, where a captain or a recruitment agent or the owner of a shipping company may keep hold of some of these documents of the workers that they have recruited to work for them. The restricted freedom of movement and prevented from leaving work. I've seen this as well a lot. So workers, some seafarers have been co-opted. I've interviewed that have been co-opted into working on boats that have been smuggling illicit goods such as sanctioned oil, weapons, drugs, and when they find out, or if they find out before they're caught, they might try and leave, and often they'll be threatened and prevented from leaving, which is obviously incredibly stressful for them. Poor, unsafe, and overcrowded working situations, living situations. That especially a lot of the boats that these exploited workers will be working on are often very old. Maybe they lack air conditioning, and they may be living and sleeping in very cramped and unsanitary conditions. And the threat of, again, dismissal, deportation, violence, or harm if they complain is pretty common. And recruitment based on false promises about work pay or destination are also pretty common. And what that can look like in the work that I've been doing is seafarers, maybe they've been recruited in India, and they're told that their job will begin overseas and they'll be flown to another country, and they have to board the ship that they'll be working on there. a lot are told that they are going to be working in the Gulf, and they're expecting to be working in good conditions in the Persian Gulf. Maybe they're told that they'll be working from Dubai, and then they might be shuttled on to a place like Iran, where um, there is there's and a lot of abuse can ensue there. There's also a lot of seafarer abuse, sorry, in the UAE and in the Persian Gulf as well. But it's seen as a more attractive destination than Iran for a lot of these young seafarers. So I think that's this slide. If you'd like to change, thank you, Billy. So these are a few of the stories I've done in the last few years for Thomson Reuters Foundation, The Washington Post, and The Observer. And a lot of the themes are, so I kind of explored the link between sanctions, especially Iranian sanctions, and human trafficking. So a lot of the dark fleet, which is these boats that transport sanctioned oil, because they're kind of running on low cost, etc. They specifically target young seafarers to exploit and traffic, and this is very, very common. So a lot of seafarers get stranded on ships or trapped on ships in Iran and the surrounding countries. I've also written a lot about the actual process of smuggling oil by speaking to seafarers. And another huge theme is seafarer abandonment. And what that looks like is maybe a shipping company has run out of money, or for some reason has decided to kind of literally abandon their ship. And they leave the seafarers on them to man the ship, because ships still have to be manned, and may not be supplying them with their salary, or even in some instances food and fresh water. And each year, according to the International Transport Workers Federation, which is a global workers union, about 3,000 seafarers. There are documented cases of about 3,000 seafarers abandoned every year. I would imagine that the number is a lot higher, and there are a lot of cases that go under the radar as well. And this is can be incredibly cruel and distressing for these seafarers, where they may be stranded on a ship for sometimes a year or more, not having any money to send home to their families, and again, like having a massive shortage of food, water, and soap, etc. And it's can be incredibly dire. So yeah, I think that's the end of this slide. Thank you very much, Freddie. So I wanted to talk a little bit more about abandonment. And so I wrote this story for The Observer, which is a UK national newspaper. I think it was published last year. And what happened here was a crew on a boat that was marooned off the shore of Mozambique had been abandoned by their employer, a UK registered company, for about 10 months, and they were owed I think it was like $260,000 in unpaid wages in total between I think there was a crew of about 13, and they were having to beg their employer to send out shipments of food and water to them from the Port Beira in Mozambique, and they never had enough food. And they were just kind of existing there, and just desperately trying to be released, sending emails to their employer and seafarers charities and the ITF, the workers union I mentioned before. I found out about this story because one of a seafarer that I connected with over social media that I've been chatting to about the industry was sailing on a vessel, sorry, fairly near to this vessel that was in distress, and noticed that it didn't have any power. And so he started speaking with the captain over the radio, and then WhatsApped me, and then put me in contact with the captain. So a source that I kind of connected with over, I think it was Facebook, several months earlier, that kind of forgotten we'd had this conversation, had remembered and referred the crew to me. And so I was interviewing them, and luckily they had a lot of documents that kind of that reinforced what they were telling me, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And so this story ended up being published, and and the seafarers were released a few weeks later, which was a great outcome. I think they're still fighting for some of their salary though. But they are at least they're home right now. Next slide, please. So finding sources. So I just mentioned that came about because I'd connected with a source over social media. What I usually do is kind of develop like a hit list of companies that I think may be doing bad things. And so I'll be looking for, say, trade news reports about companies that have been caught smuggling in the past or fairly recently. There's a really helpful database. The International Labour Organization has a database of abandonment of seafarers. It's updated pretty regularly. And so you can kind of skim down that, and I'd look for indications that I'd see, say, the same company coming or the same vessel coming up again as an abandoned vessel, or and that company may be exclusively using flags of convenience, which is every vessel flies under a flag of a country, and they need to adhere to the regulations of that country. And there is a list of countries that qualify as flags of convenience because they have very lax rules, and so a lot of vessels may opt to register under those flags because of tax advantages and also the lack of enforcement of labour rights and other regulations. And that is often an indicator of abuse. So I kind of go down that list, kind of make a list of the companies, vessels, etc., that I want to target, and then look for any chatter about those companies and vessels on social media, and reach out to seafarers that I think may know something about them or have experiences with those companies. And so I'll then kind of look through Facebook, see sometimes people list where they work. Sometimes people start posts and start complaining about certain vessels they've been on. TikTok is great. A lot of young seafarers are also on Instagram. Sometimes they make YouTube videos. Sometimes these shipping companies may have Instagram accounts, and you might get angry comments from past employees in their comments, and that might be a good source for you to just kind of message them and see kind of what their experiences are. So I typically use, like I said, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and possibly LinkedIn as well. There's quite a few seafarers on LinkedIn, but then I usually use their names and like message them over a more informal social media platform like Facebook or Instagram. It feels more relaxed to reach out to people there. Like some people I find are quite defensive if you reach out to them on LinkedIn. And then also seafarer charities, like there is the Mission to Seafarers and various international seafarer NGOs that provide support and help for seafarers. So sometimes I'll get introduced to somebody that's had a particularly bad experience from one of these NGOs. And also experienced captains usually want to look out for younger seafarers that are being exploited. And sometimes they run WhatsApp groups for complaints. And I've been invited into a few of those, which has been tremendously helpful. You know, WhatsApp groups of maybe like 250 seafarers in that I can connect with and hopefully have some conversations with about what they've been going through. Next slide, please. So I kind of just went through this. So I guess I just went through this, but this is how I find my seafarers. I've put a picture there of an Instagram page of a company where I saw some of the comments where people were complaining about being overworked and some various deficiencies of that company. So that's the kind of thing that I'm looking for if I'm on Instagram. Next slide, please, Fede. So when I'm interviewing these seafarers, I again will be looking for the indicators of trafficking forced labor. I want to be able to kind of almost be able to visualize exactly what they've been through. So I'll be asking a lot of questions about their journey, their thoughts at each moment of the journey, the documents that they may have been given, any questions about dramatic moments where they've realize that they've been wronged or that they are trapped in a situation. Um, and just questions about, did you have access to your phone at this time? Did you have access? Did you have a SIM card? Were you able to try and get help? And when I'm interviewing, especially if the conversation's going very well and I'm getting a lot of time with somebody, I'll almost be trying to kind of put together some scenes of what would be a feature. So maybe I'll be asking about certain things, like a lot of detailed questions, so I can visualize exactly what happens, and maybe that will be my intro for a feature, etc. It's super important as well to ask for documents, photos. A lot have pictures of the vessels that they're on and the conditions those vessels can be in, videos as well, uh, screenshots of communications with recruiters, employers, cargo documents that show what cargo is on board their vessels, insurance documents which you can trace back vessel ownership to, flight tickets, travel documents, business cards of their recruitment agents. Just did they sign a contract? Do they have a copy of that contract, or an offer letter, like or the adverts that they responded to when they first got in contact with their recruitment agent? Just anything that can help just verify everything that they're telling you is just really, really important to keep in mind when you're talking to them about various stages of the things that have happened to them. Okay, next slide, thank you. And so obviously, if you're doing this reporting, you're reaching out to people that may be very vulnerable. A lot of the people I speak to are still in situations where they're being trapped, but they may have access to their phones. They could be on a broken down vessel, stranded in a port in Iran, and begging for food from passing ships, which is quite common. A lot of this reporting, sorry, I just need to clarify, I did before this current conflict with Iran. But yeah, so firstly, you need to make sure that the person that you're speaking to understands that you're a journalist and they understand what that is. And they don't think that you can kind of necessarily help rescue them in any way. You don't have those expertise, and I wouldn't suggest trying to coordinate anything yourselves. But if somebody is in danger and they aren't already in active contact with at least the ITF, definitely introduce them over WhatsApp to a person from the ITF, because they, like these seafarers, a lot of them, their lives are in danger. So explain who you work for, why you're contacting them, what the story is about, and how their information may be used. You need to, obviously, if they are in a situation where they're still actively being trafficked, then obviously a conversation on source protection is needed. Is it okay to use your first name if it's common enough, or should we give you an alias if the publication allows, or any kind of talk through any factors that they could be identified by, and make sure that if they think that it'd be risky, that's published, that isn't published. So source protection is incredibly important, both during the reporting and also after the story is published as well. Objectivity. These stories are obviously highly emotive, but make sure that you are being fair, objective, obviously very gentle with your questions. But you need to obviously get the information that you need, and maintain an objectivity. We're not activists, we're journalists, basically. That's what I wanted to say with that. I think that's it for this slide. And then trauma-informed interviewing. So some seafarers have gone through a lot. I've spoken to some that have been imprisoned, some that have lost limbs in shipping accidents. And so keep that in mind when you're speaking to these people, that they may be very traumatized. So you may want to speak to them, in short bursts over several weeks even, or maybe they want to speak to you. But just keep in mind, if somebody is getting upset when they're speaking to you, that it may be that you should offer them a break, make sure that they realize that they're in control of that situation, and they can take a break from talking to you if needed. always ask open, non-judgmental questions when you're speaking to your interviewees, um, and avoiding any language that looks like it may blame the victim. Explain your process. So if you're asking a lot of detailed questions, you know you'll need them for your feature. Explain why you're doing that, so they don't feel like they're being interrogated. So say, oh, I'm just really trying to understand this, and imagine things from your perspective. Is it okay if I ask you a few more questions, etc.? So yeah, that's that for that slide. Thank you. And documents are hugely important, as mentioned before. So some of these are from the gas falcon story I mentioned in the beginning. So the owner of the ship that abandoned the ship he denied any link to the ship when I first reached out to him for a comment request at the end of my reporting. And that was obviously not true. And luckily, I could prove that on paper because the captain of the ship had some expired insurance documents on board that he could send to me that showed the exact ownership structure of the ship and the shipping company, which made the story, it was hugely important to the story. Below, so in the bottom left-hand corner, there is an email that the captain sent asking for the crew to be allowed to leave the ship, and they were constantly being denied, so they were being actively kept on that ship. And again, for my story, that was hugely important. Moving over, I've got so a flag, like a flag registration certificate, which is also it's very interesting and helps verify where the ship is registered. Below that, in the middle, at the bottom of the middle, is a cargo manifest, which was from a story a few years ago that showed smuggled goods were on board the Iranian petroleum products. And then if you go onto the right, there are some conversations, screenshotted conversations with recruitment agents that one is like very angry, as per the emojis, that a person that they placed on a ship that was actually smuggling sanctioned oil off the coast from Iran off to other ships off the coast of Dubai wanted to leave, and he was being threatened, his family was being threatened, and he sent me some screenshots of that. And so these things are just really important to bear in mind, that if you can get hold of them, it's excellent for your reporting. Yeah, I think that's all of my slides.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you very much for this amazing presentation. We already have a lot of questions about it, and okay, I'll try to share a few and see how many we can answer. We can spend around 10, maybe 10 minutes in questions. So I'll just start with the first one. It's from Amruta, and she says, they say, I would love to know how you have been able to connect with these workers. So maybe you can tell us a little how you found them.
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, I usually connect with them over social media. And so again, I will look for people that I think are involved in the company, work for the companies or on the vessels that I've identified of interest. And I'll usually compile a spreadsheet, and I'll be looking to get maybe 5 times the names I think I may need for a story, because obviously some people won't be relevant, some people won't answer the messages, some people won't want to talk. So between 5 to 10 times that, and I spreadsheet everything out, and then I will usually send them a DM. And now Facebook DMs, they're encrypted, so that's helpful in this instance. And just explain who I am. And again, that's a conversation in itself. And explain why I want to speak with them. Some want to speak, some don't. And so it's a numbers game.
I think that relates a lot with other questions that we have about
Yeah.
how when you use social media, are you using your own name, your account? Do you use any specific security measures?
So I sometimes I'll speak to people on Signal, but it's usually mainly DMs. And like I said, because now they're encrypted on Facebook, and the initial conversations at least aren't too sensitive. But I will, yeah, it's I mean, it's not often that the people I'll be reaching out to may have, sophisticated encrypted messaging platforms or services like on their phone. So it's mainly just the normal social media platforms. But then if you connect with somebody and they want to talk and you assess that more security may be needed, then you can kind of manage that from there, move them over to Signal or somewhere else.
Another very interesting question, it's from Adina asking, how do you establish trust with the seafarers, especially if you may be speaking to them over bad phone connections, it means distance, like you are very far away. How to establish trust on this?
I think I've been doing this for quite a while and in other settings as well. Like I've done a lot of stories where I've reached out to kind of migrant domestic workers en masse, so I'm quite used to having these conversations. But I'll just make sure they know who I am. They often ask where I'm from, and then so I'll obviously some questions I'll answer about myself. Sometimes they might want to see a story that I've written before, or some kind of verification that I am a journalist. But it's just the conversations can be quite natural. Like we'll be talking a lot about their aspirations for their lives, like a lot of these, and where things went wrong, what they hope for the future. I'm really interested in speaking to them about a lot of things. So the conversation isn't just like a bullet kind of list of like, was your passport confiscated? Have you paid any money? Like it's a conversation that often unfolds over several hours, and I'll be asking them a lot of it. In a lot of ways, it will seem more like a chat about life.
Thank you, Katie. I have another one, very interesting one also from Dr. Magai Sokwa, and hope I'm pronouncing your name right, asking if there's a first traumatic experience from your experience. It varies from country to country and company to company, or do you find some like uniform difficulties across the profession?
So the seafarers that I've been speaking to, the issues, they can be, the genesis of them all are pretty uniform in terms of rogue recruitment agents, often lack of payment, overwork, unsafe conditions. But a lot of the stories are different in terms of injuries, being abandoned in weird places, uh, including, in the conflict zones where there's literally, I've spoken to seafarers that have been abandoned off the coast of Yemen when there's been bombing campaigns, etc. Some have been incarcerated, some, and a lot of them don't realize when they step onto a ship that they may be involved in illegal activity. And it's always interesting to talk about that. So um, the stories are often different, but there's a lot of commonality between the issues and the ways that they have been exploited or coerced into the situations that they find themselves in.
Thank you, Katie. There's a follow-up question about the social media, and I will put two questions together. One is from Franca, and the other one I think is from Henry. I will put them together. One is how much information do you have on your professional social media account? And if
Mm-hmm.
you can confirm that you use a second set of non-identifying social media accounts, like for your reporting.
I actually, so I don't really, I use just my social media account. So I have a Facebook account that I don't really post that much on anymore. I don't think anybody really does. Like I'll post some work stuff and I will, add people on there. And so I kind of now have a network of a lot of seafarers, a lot of domestic workers. I think there's about 5,000 people on my Facebook that I can just DM or, and then I see sometimes if people are posting about certain issues that they're facing, or I may be picking up conversations with people that I connected with several years earlier, but I don't really place a lot of huge importance in my Facebook account. I use it just for work and remembering friends' birthdays. So I don't have a second account. I don't use anonymous accounts, and I think it does help that there is a bit of activity on there. And I've had my Facebook account since I guess 15 years, so it doesn't look like a dummy account to people that are I'm reaching out to. Instagram I've recently put it private. It was public before, and again, I don't really put much anything that was too sensitive on there. And I've got plenty of seafarers that I'm connected with on there. And and again, we'll pick up conversations sometimes several months down the line, and they want to tell me about something, and we'll speak on there. So I just have one account for each platform.
There are also two questions from okay, let me see. Sorry, I missed the name. Joseph. Yeah, and one from an anonymous attendee. I will put them together. How about the language you use? What's the language you were using to communicate with these affairs? It's everything in English, or how do you overcome the language barrier if exists during the interviews?
With seafarers specifically, it's all in English because I'm speaking with people from India, people from the Philippines that have a great grasp of English generally, anyways. But also seafarers generally, they do speak English. Um, I think it'd be very different if I was the seafarers I mainly speak to work on cargo ships or oil and chemical tankers. I think it may be different if I was, say, trying to reach out to fishermen in Chinese or Indonesian fishermen. I think that would be a whole different ballgame. But these seafarers, a lot of them, they're very serious about their careers and the profession. Something's gone wrong somewhere, but they have gone to undergone some training. They want an international career at sea, and a lot of them have it's a great command of English.
Thank you, Katie. I think we have time for two more that I already have here in the Q&A. And the first one is from Hashri. I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. Just wondering what kind of angles and perspective one can look at while reporting on these issues and pitching it to editors. So thinking about how can you pitch this to editor? What kind of stories can you bring that might be interesting for editors?
Yeah, it depends. A lot of them can be tied to geopolitical events. I know there's been a lot of stories recently about the seafarers abandoned or seafarers that are being made to work on ships going through the Strait of Hormuz, or maybe they've been, and obviously that's a very dangerous and risky work right now. And seafarers are supposed to have the right and the option to object to working in conflict zones. Whether or not that happens in practice is another story. But always look for ways to kind of tie stories to geopolitical events, or maybe you've come across something specific related to a specific company, like the Gas Falcon story that I did, or a specific recruitment agent, or a certain method that recruitment agents are using to advertise jobs deceptively, like over on certain platforms, social media. I think the more that you speak to people in this sector, and this could be retired seafarers that are now working as consultants or people from these charities, the more conversations you'll have, the more ideas you'll have for leads and avenues to follow for different stories. So the more you learn, the more stories you'll find.
Thank you very much, Katie. That was awesome. Thank you for sharing your knowledge, being so generous, and your experience. I think it's lot of great questions and great answers. And now we are going to start the second part of our webinar. Let me share. I don't know if you're staying a little longer or are you leaving right now. Should I say goodbye right now?
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Okay, then I say goodbye. Thank you, Katie, for joining today, and really thank you for last thing. Maybe you want to share, I don't know, for your contact details in the chat if you want, any email contact details.
Yeah, if I put my email in the chat.
In case
Yeah,
anyone wants to reach
yeah.
out and discuss further.
And mine, just LinkedIn is and is probably the best. I'll just put my
or
name.
LinkedIn. You can, yeah, whatever.
Yeah. There we go.
Thank you very much, Katie.
Thank you very much. Bye. Bye. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye. Okay, let me share my screen again. And we will keep going with the second part. One second. I hope you can see my screen. Okay, the second part of the webinar, it's more about, we heard from the experience of a journalist on how she worked with all these topics. But the second part, it's from the data and research team from the Pulitzer Center. We want to share some of the tools and techniques that we use to work with this. Just a short agenda on what I'm going to talk about today in this second section. Remember, you can start adding your questions in the chat. I don't know if we will be able to answer all of them, but we'll try. And then we also do a follow-up email sharing the video, sharing the slides, sharing the links for the stories and resources. And you can always reach out later if there's anything that we missed. But so today we are going to talk about flags of convenience. What are the flags of convenience and what are they important in our reporting? We'll look about on some labor rights and complaint databases and platforms related to labor rights in the ocean. Some of them already Katie mentioned, and we'll talk about a few more as well. I'll talk about some tips to find sources online, also how we can use AIS and satellite images to find ships in satellite images, and finally some names for reports and NGOs that it's good to have under your radars if you're interested in reporting about these topics. So let's start with the flags of convenience. So basically, every vessel has a flag, which is indicating what's the country where they have been registered, right? And that's the state that should be that it's responsible, that the ship owners are in compliance with all the laws and safety, security, etc. laws in the ship, right? Including those related to the welfare of the crew. We say that a vessel has a flag of convenience when the country where it's registered is different from the country with the final ownership. Think about this like similar to tax havens, right? Where the companies register in another country where they're different from the one they really operate to pay less taxes or to have certain benefits, right? So the flag of convenience is similar. You can the owner can be from one country, but then have the country registered in one of these countries. And they do this because they, as I said, they can get tax benefits or lower costs for the registries registering the ship. Maybe there is the standards for safety and security regulations are lower in these countries. But also it's about capacity. These countries, these might be small countries that have thousands of vessel registered, but they don't have the resources, and they are not good with oversight on compliance. And something that it's important to say, being registered in a ship having a flag under a flag of convenience doesn't mean it's not directly related. It doesn't mean that it's a red flag, something is wrong. It's common, but often the flag of convenience correlate with poor working conditions. So it's something that it's important to take into account. One interesting place to visit, and I think Katie mentioned the International Transport Worker Federation. They keep a list on their website on the of what they consider are flags of convenience. Right. Currently, we have 48 countries. 2026. This is updated regularly. The one with most registered vessels are Liberia, Panama, and the Marshall Islands. But you will find many other common flag of convenience like Comoros, Myanmar, the Cook Island, Cameroon, and more. So I always put the example of Bolivia, which is a country that has no sea actually, but they have a lot of vessels registered that are going around the world and not related at all with Bolivia, the ownership, right? So you can understand what a flag of convenience is, right? So if you're investigating a vessel because you are suspecting of labor issues or something on labor issues, I recommend you to take a look if the flag the vessel has, it's considered a flag of convenience. How can we find a flag, a ship's flag, right? So we can find this and much more data about any fish on Equasis, which is a free platform that has a lot of data. It's free, but it requires registration. So I suggest you to register. You will find, I won't go into the details of what of the many details you can find about ships. I recommend you to take a look to watch our webinar about how to track ships using OSINT, where we explain more about this. But basically, just mentioning that the ships have different characteristics and identifiers. Today we are focusing on IMO, which is a unique number that doesn't change, the name and the flag. Name, flag, and other attributes can change. And it happens often, maybe because there was a change of ownership, there was a change of the registry, but always it's something that it's worth checking what happened, but it's something that it happens often. It doesn't mean per se that a change it's a red flag. Something to look as we do as journalists and investigate. So, and Equasis also give us a lot of data, more data about like the company that owns the vessel, past companies that own the vessel, the year when it was built, port of registration, and more. So it's a good friend. So a very quick quiz. Maybe if some of you already have access to Equasis, or maybe you know any other platform that where you can look for this information. 30 seconds. Can you find the current flag of this vessel called the Ray Gas? And that's the IMO. It's 9040883. And there is a bonus if you can tell me what was its previous flag or former flag and name. You can post in the chat. 30 seconds starting now, and you can use Equasis to find the answer. If you don't have an account, you need to register. Okay, I can see Emiliano is very fast and said Comoro. Okay, let's see if this is right. And yes, this is right. You can see that congratulations, Emiliano, you got a virtual beer from me. You can see that actually, yes, this is the current flag. And you can also check that the former, if you go to the ship history, there is a section that says ship history on Equasis. You can also check that you find the previous former names and former flags, right? And when they were using those flags and names. For example, you can see that the previous name for the Ray Gas was the Gas Falcon, which actually, and had in 2023, right? And the Gas Falcon had the Gabon flag, which, if you remember, is the ship that Katie mentioned that was abandoned for months by the ship owner near Mozambique, right? So it's the same ship. It changed the name. It changed the flag, but it's always the same ships. You can always check. Actually, both Comoros and Gabon are considered flag of convenience as well. Other platforms that you can use are Global Fishing Watch, Marine Traffic, and Vessel Finder for these kind of investigations as well. And as I said, remember, flag of convenience are a lead, right? Not a direct evidence of wrongdoing. So always something that needs to be investigated further. Let's see now some databases that can help us with like the different memorandum of understanding that different port authorities have around the world, the inspections and deficiencies that we can find on Equasis, and two super useful databases. One was already mentioned by Katie, is the one put together by the International Labour Organization and the International Maritime Organization, which is this abandonment database, and also the ITF lookup tool to check vessels. The memorandum of understanding basically are regional agreements from maritime authorities to coordinate the inspection of foreign vessels when these vessels are visiting their ports, right? So this is to check and to verify that these vessels are in compliance with the standards of well-being, safety measures, environmental protection, technical operation laws, etc. Right? So I'm taking here as an example the Paris MOU, which basically covers Europe and the North Atlantic. You can, when the vessels arrive to these ports, not every vessel, but it depends on, sometimes are random checks, sometimes are because they have a history of previous uncompliance or because they have a lead. But basically they are inspected, right? And the port registers deficiencies, right? Meaning violations to the Maritime Labor Convention, if there are, I don't know, to safety measures in the ship, operation conditions, etc. And if there are like serious deficiencies, this can lead to a detention, meaning that the vessel can't can leave the port until these deficiencies are solved, right? And if it happens, if there is a continual repeat detentions, repeat deficiencies can lead to general ban. So the ships won't be able to visit the port, right? So the Memorandum of Paris publishes this list of white, gray, and black, that's how they call it, flags according to the performance for that specific flag, right? Ships that has that specific flag and have been inspected in the last 3 years. It's a very good information to add to the flag of convenience to understand what's the risk associated to the flag of a ship we are investigating, right? Many of the flags of convenience are also in the last positions in the memorandum of understanding of Paris in the list, right? There are MOUs for many regions in the world, like Asia Pacific, the Caribbean, the Indian Ocean, and more. And you can go and visit each of these databases to get to find the registries and a registry for each inspection, right? Every time there is an inspection, there is a registry, and that's open. The good thing with McQue is, again, going back to the tool that we start to use, is that for every ship, if we go to the section inspections, we can find all the previous inspection, and they put together all the reports from all the different MOUs. So you don't need to go to the website of the MOU of Paris to check and then go to the one from the Indian Ocean. You can just go to McQue's, put the ship name, and find all the inspections, right? And you can see here that you can also check if there were deficiencies, this column number of deficiencies they found, and even detentions, right? If the number of deficiencies led, right, set grounds for detention. You can also find that. And actually, if you go into the details, you can see the cause for what are they missing? What's the problem? What are these deficiencies about? Okay. So this is basically a gold mine for investigative journalists, as we can see the timeline of compliance for a vessel in a very detailed way, right, with exact dates. Sharing here some tips that you can take into account to look at this data. Look for patterns, right? So don't stay just with the only deficiency or the only data that you found, right? So the vessels need to comply with a lot of rules, and a few eventual deficiencies is not necessarily a red flag, right? So look for patterns. Do they have many deficiencies? What are the type of deficiencies they found? It's the same in different ports over time. Yeah, did they face many detentions, etc., right? On the other side, like going on the contrary, meaning that if you don't find anything, it doesn't mean that the ship doesn't have problems, right? So a clean inspection at a certain time only is telling you what they found or what didn't found at that specific time, right? So and also there are different kinds of inspections. Sometimes they do like initial inspections, which are kind of more of superficial, and sometimes they do more thorough inspections that can show broader problems, right? So no deficiency doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that the ship is perfect, right? But if you find a pattern over time of many deficiencies, that's something definitely that you want to look for. Not check only not don't check only about deficiencies related to work, right? Like to the Maritime Labor Convention, because things like related to safety, deficiencies related to safety, accommodation, and other things may also be talking about broader working conditions for the crew, right? All go to the source. As I said, Equasis is good to start as a starting point where you can go and see where these things are, but where the list of deficiencies. But then I suggest you, if you find inspections and deficiency, go to the specific website for them, that specific MOU, and check if there is updated data there. And always, as we recommend as journalists, follow the money. If you have a lead about a specific vessel, make sure that you are also, because I don't know, you got from a source that there might be some problem with the labor problems in that vessel. Make sure that you also investigate other vessels in the ship, other vessels in that fleet, right? From the same owner, from the same company, etc. If you want to investigate, learn how to investigate about companies, watch our How to Follow the Money webinar, where Yelter did an amazing job. He's our expert on that and shared a lot of tips. Okay, let's go with another quick pop quiz. How many deficiencies were identified on the ray gas? Remember, it was the former previous gas. I'm sharing the right name, the current name, but actually it was Falcon gas. This is the IMO in 2023. And which port or ports reported them? And there's a bonus. It will be like a pack of chips together with the chips together with the beer. If you also can answer if any of these deficiencies are clearly related to the crew's employment situation. 20-30 seconds, and I'm looking. Please share if you find the answer. Please share it in the chat. Can use the IMO, look for the inspections, go to the ship history, look for the inspections, and see if you can find where if there were deficiencies and how many in 2023. 10 more seconds. Anyone getting the beer and the chips? 14 says Shalaka. Okay, let's see the answer. Okay, actually, we can see here that there were 19, but I get why you said 14, Shalaka, because we can see that there were several inspections during 2023, okay, in ports in Ukraine, in Turkey, and in Romania, right? And during the inspections in Media, Romania, and Kocaeli in Turkey, they found 5 and 14 different deficiencies. And actually, you can see that the ship was detained in Romania after this inspection because there were grounds for detention. Okay, and if we go into the next slide, we can see that if we want to check if any of these deficiencies are related to labor issues, we can go to details and check, and you'll see that some of the deficiencies actually are, right? In Romania, on April 18, 2023, some of them, these deficiencies were related to certificates, crew certificates, medical care, health protection, right? And actually, some of them were grounds for detention, as you can see, right? Like a missing certificate for personnel on tankers. Remember that it's a gas tanker, right? So this ship is a tanker that carries gas, and they need specific certificate that specific trainings the crew for using this. Okay, it looks like they didn't have this, which of course it makes sense that it's ground for detention, right? So you found here evidence that the ship was not operating like with all the requirements covered. And remember that this is a ship from Katie's history that a few months later was abandoned by the ship owner. So this could have been leads that were anticipated some of these problems. Okay, another database, and this was mentioned by Katie already. We scrape it we scrape the whole database for Katie's investigation, and we use it a lot. Basically, it's the ILO and the IMO keeping this updated database of the case of seafarer abandonment. It's important to define what we consider abandon, what they consider abandonment, and basically it's when something of the following happens. If there is a failure for the seafarers to return home, so they are not covering, the ship owner is not covering the cost of the seafarers to return home. If the ship owner fails to provide essential support and care, and if there is a failure to pay wages for more than 2 months. Okay, so for the investigation, the useful part is that you can search ship by ship, right? You can look by IMO number, company date, and in each case you will get a timeline and details as the port, true nationality, and status of the abandonment. Has been sold already, they are still there. So if you find a vessel that has been abandoned, you can use the IMO to follow the company, check other vessels in the fleet, its history, and look for additional sources or pattern, right? Using Equasys or any other platform. Something that for me it's key here, the nationality, right? It's an important information because it can also give us data about how to find, because we have a detail. This is some of the examples in the data set, and you can say it says nationality. We have the different nationalities that are part of the crew, and those are leads to understand where we can find these people, right? If we want to reach out to these people, where can we find them, right? Actually, if I'm not wrong, I think in the top of the most affected, like the nationalities, most cases of abandonment, suffering abandonment are Indians and Filipinos. And also in the timeline for each case, if you enter there are a lot of comments and yeah, all the case, the detailed case, what happened, how it started, insurance company, etc., etc., etc. You might find data that you won't find in other platforms. Sometimes even names of the crew. That also is very helpful if you want to look for sources, right? To find people you want to talk to. And finally, on the platforms that we can use, I want to mention briefly the ITF vessel lookup platform that basically allows you to look using a name or an IMO and understand if it's covered by an agreement, an ITF agreement, right? This is useful because you can understand what's the company and the union, when the company and the union sign the agreement, if it exists, when it finished, what's the start date and date, more information on the crew and inspection. The ITF also does some inspections, right? So you can, this also help you to understand like labor issues and understand patterns from a company or between different ships and find more leads. Okay, let's talk now about how we look for sources. This one, I saw a few questions and Katie answered some of them. I will tell you a few things that we take into account when we are trying to find sources for these kind of stories. We are trying to help the journalists to find sources for these kind of stories. Let's imagine that now we have a company or a vessel that we want to investigate because we got a lead or because we found something on one of these databases, and now we want to talk people to talk about it, right? Always remembering and following all the advices about how you approach to seafarers and victims of labor abuse and how to interview people ethically, right? These sources could be from actual seafarers that are on the crew of the ship, maybe former workers, maybe seafarers from the same fleet, from another ship in the same fleet, even all former officers or directors, port authorities, etc. But how we start? Okay, if we want to look for data about crews and crewing companies, a very useful platform that you can use is Crew Data, where you will find a lot of information about companies, seafarers, and also ship shops, right? There are thousands of names and profiles of seafarers, like with name and surname and information about where they work, etc. So this is very useful starting point. Maritime Monster has a lot of job openings for seafarers, so also another interesting place to look for information. And we always recommend Reddit, where you can find many times you can find interesting testimonies, right, or leads or people to talk to. I recommend you, if you do this, to find like specific subreddits for a nationality, for different nationalities, which there are. For example, there is one for Indians and another for the Philippines, right? For India and another for the Philippines. So you can start there. But also you can look directly on Google, right, to find the sources you are looking for. And just sharing a few tips on how to do that. Always start, of course, with the ship name or the company or the IMO to look for crew and documents. I suggest you to use operators, right, to build Google Docs. Maybe you heard about this, which are these expressions to find and to refine your results in Google, right? Because probably if you just put the name of a vessel directly on Google, what I will get is for the first 20 results, all results from the regular platforms that we know, Equasis, Maritime Traffic, Marine Traffic, Vessel Finder, etc., etc., etc. But maybe we want to go deeper, and maybe we want to find a PDF file that maybe we can find a contract, or maybe we want to look into a specific site, if we want to look into LinkedIn, right? So use this operator to build Google Docs and refine your results. Consider keywords related to what you are looking for, right? So if I'm looking for crew of a vessel, I can use keywords like crew or maybe CV or maybe officer or maybe seafarer, right? Plus the name or the IMO of the ship, right? And if you're looking into topics like abuse or abandonment or problems with wages, use those keywords as well, right? Be creative. Google, or any search engine that you use, it's also my goal if you know how to use it. And also, and this has been mentioned before, consider that the crew language that might not be English, right? So you can try to use keywords in other. Usually Google is good to understand your idea. So if you put it in English, it will also look for similar for the translation of that keyword if it's available, but in another language, but it's not, it worth trying to do that. I was talking to another fellow, ORM fellow, Somat, Abdul Somat, which also did a lot of work on reporting on ocean labor issues. And he was telling me how he was using the terms in Indonesian because he was looking about what was happening in the Arafura Sea in Indonesia, and it was he got better results using names in Indonesia to find the people he was looking for. And of course, social media, are full of information, from LinkedIn to find affiliations to Facebook or Instagram or even TikTok, where you can get pictures, you can get videos like made by the same seafarers about the ship, about their working condition, right? Facebook groups usually are a main goal. If you are able to get into Telegram groups related to seafarers, with job offers or recruiters, also on WhatsApp groups, also are a main goal, right? Those might be more difficult to find. You need to probably get in touch with a source that can help you and can point you to those groups, but also worth trying. But Facebook groups are open and you will find a lot related to seafarers. And probably many of you already have been using LLMs. You can ask for help from an LLM just to create the search, like the search query, the Google Doc, or even to just find creative ideas to look for more leads, right? Okay, let's go to the third pop quiz. So I was looking, I found, I was checking a few days ago this database from the MOU from Paris MOU, sorry, and I found this ship vessel called Leader Trabzon that was recently detained in Marseille. Can we locate any crew member? Can you quickly locate any crew member? On how would you do it? This is kind of just an exercise, so I'll just go for you can try and look more later if you revisit the webinar, but I will show you a few things that I did to find people. So basic one, I create this Google Doc with the name of the vessel and I added site LinkedIn, which basically means look for this name only within LinkedIn, right? There were a lot of results, many of them not related to people that was actually working at the ship, because sometimes it's people that saw that ship or people that brought something to the ship or the ship was mentioning. But if you filter and you start looking the results, you can find people like this, like the one that I post, two people that I post share here. For example, this one on the left, it says leadership in second captain on this is a translation from, I think it's Turkish, second captain of the leader transport. So this person is a former second captain. And on the right, actually, I found a guy saying, this is my first internship for 6 months. So two very different very different range, right? Within the crew, from the one that just started to one that is a second captain. And you can see how some people post, we can get, pictures and also videos, as I was saying before, that can give you more leads about what's happening in the ship, etc., right? Filled within the same ship. Another query that I tried was I added the keywords crew and CV, the name of the ship, the crew and CV, and then cite Facebook. Because I know Facebook has a lot of groups where people discuss things, right? Okay. I saw this result, which is also Turkish, but that with the name, you can see the result on Google, on the first with a white background with the name of the vessel. And then this is from Facebook, something in Turkish that look like an interesting lead, but I don't speak Turkish, so I use the translator, and I recommend you, if you find any potential lead in another language, use the translator. And what I did, what I found, basically one guy asking for advice about working in a ro-ro ship. Ro-ro ships are these that transport vehicles, right? And I have a few questions. Could you help me? And this guy answering, yes, go on, ask away, leader transport, ro-ro maintenance. So this guy is working on the ship and it's looking forward to answer questions, right? So we found another person that we can interview. So never dismiss the leads in another language, okay? Okay, we're almost there. Two more sections, and then we will have, I hope, 10, 15 minutes for question if you stay a few minutes longer. This is a section I love because I'm a data journalist. I'm a guy that works a lot with maps and satellite images and tracking system and etc. So basically, the ships have a system called AIS, which is similar to the GPS, right? A global positioning system to avoid collision, right? There are some limitations. I won't go into details about that today. You can check our webinar, How to Track Ships Like a Pro using OSINT, to learn more about what's AIS and what can you do and what can't you do with it. But I just want to mention that there are platforms like Global Fishing Watch, which is free, and some others like Marine Traffic and Vessel Finder that you need to pay a subscription that collect this information, and we can see the track and the location of the ship over time, right? So if we match or cross-reference this information with satellite images, we might be able to find a ship in a satellite images in a specific time in a specific location. And this is very useful as an evidence, or as journalists or researchers can be very interesting to use it to illustrate one of our stories. On the left, we have an image from one story. I think it was in Gambia from another ORM fellow that was researching these four vessels that were actually fishing in places where they shouldn't be, when they are not allowed to, these four Chinese vessels, and were docking this private port related to a company that was actually getting the fish and processing it and selling it to Europe. So, and this is a very good lead and strong evidence about these ships being related to this company. So usually it's difficult to find a ship in a satellite image. I always make the same joke. It's hard to catch a fish. It's harder to catch a ship in a satellite image. But because of course the satellite goes by and takes a picture that it takes 1 second and the ships move around. But when they stay for a long time in the same place, like when there is an abandoned case, for example, you have better chances, right? So these are the platforms that you can use to get the track sheet, the track, and to get satellite images, right? Google Earth is free, Copernicus browser is free with less resolution, and Planet is paid but has a much higher resolution. So the steps to do this, I will go quickly and hopefully I will, I don't know if I have time to show, but I will explain here. So basically the first thing that you need to do is to get the track, okay? So this image is from Global Fishing Watch, right? This is the track for a vessel that I will tell in a minute, right? Then I import that track, which is the red line, into Google Earth, where you can see it over satellite images, right? So you can put the track over a specific location. You can also use QGIS or other GIS software if you're familiar with and you want to import other kind of images like from Copernicus or from Planet. Then you need to use the time series of images. Google Earth allows you to use to check images in a place over time to find a match with the time when the ship was there, right? And when you find a potential image of the ship from the satellite, you need to check with actual images from the ship from all other sites like marine traffic, ship spotting, or vessel finder to make sure that that's the actual ship you are looking, right? So to find features that can help you to identify the ship. So this is the last quiz, and this is another story from Katie where she reported about the Farbar, which you can get a quote here from one of the seafarers saying, no, a quote, this is from her reporting saying, for 9 months in 2021, 2022, Nihal Sharma was forced to stay aboard an A ship named Farbar in Geneva Port, Iran. He was 26 and had recently graduated with a computer science degree. So she's telling a story about a ship that was abandoned near Geneva not Geneva, Genave in Iran. Can we find this ship? Yes, we can. And what I did was download the image from Google Earth, download the track from Global Fishing Watch, imported it into Google Earth, and I found the time, right, when the in this 9 month time frame that she said that the ship was there, right? Says for 9 months between 2021 2022. So I got on Google Earth an image from November 2021, which in that time frame, that matches the location that I got from the track, right? But, but an important thing, and I mentioned this, is to verify the satellite images with other kind of evidence. So this is on the top right, you see like a zoom in of the ship from the satellite images. And I got on the mm, bottom right, you see an actual image of the ship. And we can see that there are matching features, right? So we have this arc here, that it's this arc here. We have this, I guess it's control tower. I don't know how to name this. And we have it here, but also, and this is very distinctive and different from many other ships, there is this gap in between these two parts, right? That you can see it here in this image, right? Another thing that you can do to check and to match is measure. In the satellite image, you can measure how big is the ship, and then you can find inequalities, marine traffic, or other platforms, the size, the register size for the vessel. And if it matches, you have a match. One thing, here it says High Kwan, because this is an old picture, but it's the same vessel, right? Just to mention how the name can change, but the IMO stays the same, right? Okay, and finally, before we go into questions, uh, just wanted to mention a few NGO or places where you can find more information, data and reports. Human Rights at Seas, you can check their website to find reports and a lot of information about seafarer rights and abuse. AGF, Greenpeace, and Oceana are very good for EIUU fishing, right? Illegal, unreported, I always forget one irregular fishing, basically, forced labor and human right risk in fishing. Usually, when you have EU IUU fishing, it's not a direct correlation with labor issues. But usually, if you are doing something that is irregular, that it's under surveillance, that is against the regulation, you might be also having some problems in the ways you work with your crew. And also, I recommend to check the Outlaw Ocean Toolkit from Jan Turbina. It has a lot of investigative tool and maritime scenes advice and ideas and databases that you can use on your own reporting. Some examples of reports that you can find in these places. And yeah, I think we made it to the end, and we have some time for questions now. Let me check. Whoa, I have a lot here. Okay. Let me see. Any point? Those results tagged in the database mean that the stuck seafarers were given safe passage to their home country from Shalaka. Yes, I'm pretty sure that it is. You can check the ILO abandonment database and check for more details, but I'm pretty sure that it is, because they mark it as sold when all the conditions are met, right? Sometimes it's not sold when they haven't finished paying the salaries. They might go home, might have returned home, but they didn't get the salaries, etc. So yeah, that could be one. For your LinkedIn research, do you use your primary, from Emiliano, access in private mode? Do you use secondary sock puppet one? I usually we usually use both. I haven't done a lot of research on LinkedIn for this topic, but we also have a Puppet account for when we are trying to do something more, especially when we deal with sensitive topics, and this could be one. If it's a general information, no. But if you are dealing with sensitive topics, we usually use Puppet accounts, not only for LinkedIn but also for other social media accounts. Yeah, that's a safety measure that it's good to have, especially if we are doing OSINT research and we are not reaching out to people, right? It's very what we do sometimes is more on the OSINT side, and we are not like Katie said at the data and research, right? We don't interview people, so we get a sense. We try to find leads, etc., etc., etc. So we try to be careful with that. I'm having difficulty from Gael exporting and integrating global fishing watch data into Google Earth, particularly to accurately visualize a vessel trajectory and position at a specific date and time. Okay, I suggest you, if you have problem with Google Earth, I suggest you to use QGIS, where you can have a better sense on when of the date. Or another thing that you can do is directly check on Google and on Global Fishing Watch. If you use Global Fishing Watch, let me see if I have it here. I think I have one session somewhere. I don't know where. But if you check, I'm sharing my screen, right? Yeah. Okay. Let me quickly, I will look for the Farvar, which was the ship that we were talking about, right? Farvar. Remember that the IMO is a unique identifier, so try to use the IMO, but I know this is the name. You can see that we get here the, let's do month, like this is for, I don't know, let's do 2025, 2026. And if you can see, if you click here, you can get the idea on where it was at a certain amount of time. So that will help you to find, right? If you want to check, that will help you to find the specific moment also. What else? More questions. How to measure, estimate distance on water on size of the ship in satellite images. If you use Google Earth, you can measure on Google Earth. I have actually here the example, right? You can see here, right? This is a truck, right? This is a truck, and I was looking for a ship being around this area, and I went, you can use this toggle to check historical imagery, right? You enable this toggle, and I went for the date that we are looking for, that was 2021. I found this vessel that was not there previous, and then on Google Earth, you can use the ruler to measure. So we can do meters and we have 85 meters. If you go and check the vessel size on Equasys, probably it's around the same, 85, 90, 80. There is a margin of error, but it's that size. You can also measure it the other way around, right? This like this, and check, because usually you have both measures. So yeah, that's a way to work on that. What if that some ship do not have any ornament? Why should a country like Cameroon grant license to a ship with different flag, like Chinese who don't respect human rights? Okay, I don't know how to answer the second part. No, I mean, this means the vessel registry is a big income, can be a big income for countries that might not have other sources for income, and they just open the registry and give that a registry without not taking much into account. Actually, if you look into Katie's stories, there was, if I'm not wrong, she interviewed in one of the ocean conventions, the ocean conferences, the president of Palau, which is one of the flag of convenience states, which is a very small island in the or group of islands in the Pacific, and actually the president itself himself didn't know that they had a lot of ships related to with problems related to labor and any other problems registered in their country, because basically there was a big no one or not many people were checking. So yeah, and how you work. If you don't have an IMO number, you can work with the MMSI, which is another identifier that can change over time. So you need to take it with a grain of salt, but it's also another identifier that can help you to look for ships. Okay, my question is about moving from workers' testimony to a probable investigation. Okay, this is a long one. When workers describe poor pay, unsafe condition, and other forms of exploitation, what evidence should a journalist prioritize to establish whether these are isolated workplace grievances or system of a systemic labor rights? Well, I guess you should work that with your editor, right? To make sure that you have to decide what the level of proof that you can get. But as many different sources that you can add, maybe you don't have it's difficult. Not always you can get the final proof, and not always you can get all the documents that you need to show something. But you can always write a story showing all the kind of evidence that you have. If you have this vessel that has this many deficiencies, this many inspections, was detained many times, there were problems, other problems in the same fleet, other vessels from the same company having also problems. So these are different things that you can find a lot of evidence without always finding the smoking gun, but to at least show what is happening, what's the situation you're having. You might get testimonies, picture, images, videos from the crew, and more. Any tips on how to find a unique angle for the story? Well, I guess read a lot. Read a lot. Try to read journalists working on these kind of topics and understand what are the topics that have been covered, and trying to find gaps and trying to see if you can find things that haven't been covered. Talking to sources, usually finding sources and talking to sources could be it's a good tip to find interesting angles and news stories. Talk to, I don't remember if Katie mentioned this, you can talk to port authorities, you can talk to see, um, officers working in these international organizations like the IMO or the ILO to get leads, ideas, understand things that might be happening under the radar and haven't been reported. Build trust, build sources over time, and you will get interesting new leads and angles. One from Ondrila. Any pointers on how do we navigate cross-border state policy discrepancies when reporting on labor right cross-country states? Pointers. What I suggest you is first make sure that you get the information, the right information. What are the laws that apply to different countries? But remember that the law, what's happening in the ship, the state that has, and that's one of the problems of the flags of convenience, right? It's one of the big problems today in labor in the ocean. The state that is responsible for what's happening in the ship is the one, or the registry is the one on the flag. But there is a database, we can share it later. I think it's part of it's in the Outlaw Ocean toolkit, the Outlaw Project Investigative Toolkit. You have a place where a repository with all the different laws from that applies for different things related to fishing and working conditions, etc., in different countries. So that can be a helpful starting point as well. Do I have any more? Well, and there's one from Madina, and I think this one was from before. What are some of the safety mechanisms to consider when doing ocean investigation? Well, I think that Katie point out a few of them. I can talk from a general perspective as a journalist doing investigation per se. you should do a risk assessment, which is something that many, especially freelancers, but we also know, having worked with many outlets through time, that also in big outlets with and people from staff from big outlets, sometimes they don't discuss this, or they don't have their like a thorough protocol for this, but always try to build a risk assessment, which basically is an assessment of all the things that you can face during your reporting. It doesn't mean only when you go to a field trip that, of course, you need to make sure you know where are you going, you have contacts, you have a way to go out, you are always in contact with your editor, etc. Find what are the threats that you can face, etc. But also it could be digital safety. It could be how to protect your devices, how to protect yourself in social media. We have discussed today the idea of using puppet accounts. But basically, I suggest you to look, and we can share also as in the follow-up email some of the risk assessment that we recommend are you can check. There are different like ACOs, different organizations that work with journalists, helping them to identify risk and to build risk assessment to make sure that from the beginning of your reporting you are taking all these things into account, and you can report safely, not only for you, but also for the safety and to protect your sources as well. Okay, I think I made it through all of them. I was not expecting so many, and I was hoping to send a few to Katie, but she also answered a lot. So I hope this session was useful and inspiring for you. Um, I guess you can see here my final slide about you have a QR code where you can check the list. It's the playlist for all the webinars that we have done in the past. These 3 webinars: how to report on regulation and governance, how to track ships like a pro, and how to follow the money. We will add this one soon. Thank you so much for being today here, and you can reach out to us if you have any question. I think I haven't shared my contacts, but I will send them in my email later. Thank you for being here, and looking forward to seeing you the next time. Bye.